So far in CSS, we know that we can use certain selectors to style our HTML in the web page. And so in our CSS file that we've been working on here, we're currently just selecting HTML tags. So body H1, H2, paragraph, ordered list, so on and so forth. You could select divs, you could select article tags, headers, footers, so on and so forth. But the thing is, those are just HTML tags. The cool thing about CSS is that you can actually select more than just tags. You can select IDs, and you can select classes, and you can also select attributes within HTML tags. And so this lecture, we're going to talk about selecting IDs in CSS. So go ahead and create a new HTML file here called id_class.html and add that basic structure with the new title. And go ahead and add what I've added here. I just added a level 1 and 2 heading with some text. It can be any text, but I said in the H1, hey there, I'm an H1 with an ID. And my level 2 heading says, hola, I'm an H2 with a class. Again, the text is just arbitrary. It could be anything. It's more so for the fact that we're going to add some IDs to these level 1 and 2 headings so that we can style them in CSS. So first, I'm going to add an ID to this level 1 heading. Let's go ID and let's say main title. And in my level 2 heading, I'm going to give it a class. And I'm going to say something like section header. Okay. Now, you might be wondering why I use certain conventions with text here, why this one has a dash and why this one's using camel case. Camel case is when you have lowercase first word and every other word, the first letter is capitalized. Well, it really doesn't matter. You can do whatever conventions you like. You could do this. I know a lot of developers like using camel case for their IDs and dashes for their classes, and that's okay. You could do that to be consistent, but really it doesn't matter. I personally like using dashes for everything. That's just kind of my style. But just for being different, I'm going to just switch it up. So there we go. So we got main title for the ID of the H1 and section header for the class. Now, why don't we do something here? Let's add a level 3 heading and say, and I'm an H3 with the same class as the H2. And we're going to add that class just so I could show you how classes really work. Section header. Okay, so we've got an ID and a class. Whoops, should not be a space there. Now, what we need to do is link to our style sheet here. You can add a new style sheet if you want, but because we have one here, there's no point in adding more. And in fact, it's better to use as few style sheets as possible. So keep it to 1 if possible. So we're going to add our link tag here. We have to do our rel for the relationship, and that will be style sheet. And then the the type is text CSS, and then the href would be style.css. And you can use these in any order, but this is just the order I put. It really doesn't matter which one you put, which attribute. Now you can see, because I linked this up, now our page has kind of adopted the styles that have already been added to the previous external.html page. And that's kind of the point. You can use the style sheet to style your website globally. Now, if we didn't want this page to have that same style, we can use the power of the ID in the class to change that. So why don't we give our body an ID of ID class page. Let's do that. ID class page. And again, it could be anything. You could just say page-1, something like that. Or inside page, something like that. But I'm just going to say ID class page using camel case. And go to our style sheet here. And all we have to do is just go down to a new line here. Or you could do it up here if you want to keep the body styles together. Body with the ID of ID class page. And we can say background color white. Do you see how we change that back? Because this overrides this style, because this style is more specific. This is just the body tag, and this is the body tag with the ID of class page. So first, it's going to style the body with this yellow color, but if the body has an ID, whatever page has the body with an ID of ID class page will give it these styles. And there we go. So I'm going to leave the H1, 2, and paragraph and all that stuff the same because that's fine. Now let's jump down, and I'm going to add a comment. You probably should know how to do comments in CSS. That's important to keep your content, your styles organized. Comments look like this. This is a comment. It's in between a /, asterisk. You can write any text in here, asterisk, and /. That is how you do HTML comment. This is a multi-line comment, meaning you can have multiple lines like so, and it will still be a comment. It is not seen on the page. It is just there in the back end for the developer, also known as you, to see. So I'm going to make this comment say styles for the ID and class lecture. There we go. And now I'm going to select the, well, we had the H1 and it had the ID of main title. So what we can do, we can go H1 ID main dash title, and that will select that level 1 heading. And we could say color, let's do the FC3 again. Why not? Whoops, I did color the wrong spelling. There we go. So you can see that I selected the H1 with this ID. But what we can do is be a little less specific. Because it's an ID, we don't actually have to have the HTML element before. It's not necessary. And the reason why I did that is because what if we change that element to a div or an H2 or something like that? Let's leave it like this, and let me just show you what I mean. So now I'm styling H1 with the ID of main title. There we go. What happens if I go ahead and change this to a div? Uh-oh, now the style is different. So that's the point of leaving this a little less specific, and it's still maintained that style. But I'm going to change this back here to an H1. And so that is how you style an ID. We can go ahead and even do even more here. Let's say background. Let's go 353535. Now let's give it some padding. Let's say 10 pixels on all sides. And let's say margin 0. Actually, there is already no margin. Let's say margin 20 pixels. And font size 18 pixels. There we go. So there is our main title. Now, if we want to style that class, we can, like I said, do H2 with the class of section header, but we don't have to be as specific because what if we want to style the H3 with the class of section header? We're kind of defeating the purpose of the class. So if I just remove the H2 selector and just leave it as section header, now you could say I'm selecting both the H2 and H3, and they will both get these styles. So let's say color. Let's go ahead and do, let's just say olive. And so there we styled both of them. You could see that's the purpose of a class. Now let's say, what if they all had a border of solid 1 pixel pink? Now you won't be able to really see it if I'm hovered over here because brackets automatically adds that border, as you can see. But if I move, you can see the pink border. And let's say padding, let's go for 40 pixels on the top, 20 pixels on the left and right, and 10 pixels on the bottom. There we go. And let's go text align center. There we go. And why don't we just make the font size the same? So let's say 1M. Now, what if I changed the font size up here? Let's say the body has the font size of 18 pixels. Now you can see that 1em is equal to 18 pixels, which means 2em is equal to 18 times 2. Or let's do 1.2em. There we go. That's how em works. And so there we go. We have our IDs and our classes. That's basically how IDs and classes work. I kind of showed you up here as well. You can append the tag before. You can not add the tag. You could do the same for the ID and the class. But if you're wanting to select multiple elements and they have different elements but the same class, you can omit the element and just add the class. And it will globally style all those elements, no matter what element it is. So what if we just added, just for an example here, a header and said, I'm a header tag with the same class as the last two guys. And we give this the class of section header. Watch this. There we go. It takes the same style. Now, because these are headers, they are by default bolded, whereas these are headings, so they're bolded, whereas this tag is just a generic block level tag. It's not bolded by default. So you can, you could change that if you want. You can go back to your styles and you could say, I want the font weight to be normal. Now everything looks the same. And you wouldn't know that these are level 1 and 2 headings and this is a header tag. They all have the same style, regardless of the element. And so that's how IDs and classes work in CSS.